Hi everyone, it's your book coach Liisa Kovala here. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in for a discussion about all things writerly. I'm the author of Sister's Winter War and Surviving Stutthof, my father's memories behind the death cave, and I'm an author accelerator, certified fiction, and memoir book coach. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. In this podcast, we'll take a coffee break together to chat with authors, publishers, book coaches, marketers, agents, publicists, booksellers, and many others. Welcome to Women Writing. So happy you could join us for a coffee and a chat. In today's episode of Women Writing, I'm chatting with multi-disciplinary artist, author, accelerator certified book coach, and lifelong activist with a passion for holistic health and healing, Katie Curtin. She helps creative changemakers bring their visions to life. Her writing journey began at 24 with Women in China, which saw 3 printings, translations into French and Swedish, and adoption into high school curriculum, and continues with her Amazon bestseller, The Happy Well-Fed Artist, How to Get Your Creative Projects Off the Ground and Into the World. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice to see you. I love that we're doing this in together. We had a conversation a couple months ago, I think, in about a book you were reviving, which is called The Happy Well-Fed Artist: How to Get Your Creative Projects Off the Ground and Into the World. When did you first write that book?
I wrote it 10 years ago. Well,
Okay.
I mean, I started writing before, but I published it 10 years
Okay.
ago. And
Yeah.
so I've been wanting to do some revisions for quite a while, and then I kind of kept, well, I started doing it and then I would kind of get into other projects. And then I thought, well, 10th anniversary is a good time. And
Yeah.
I've got new chapters that I've worked on, which I think add to it.
Amazing.
And a lot of things have changed.
Okay. So can you
Not
just tell us a little bit about what that book is about for folks who maybe haven't come across it yet?
yeah, it's about, well, it's for people who want to know how to go from the beginning of an artistic project to the end
Yeah.
and get it out in the world and promote it. And it was initially, I thought about it because when I got out of, like, I was in the arts and I was in theater and I got out of school and I think I'd done one thing on arts admin, which was kind of general for more like, bigger companies and that. I can't remember anything of it right now,
Yeah.
but it wasn't that applicable.
Yeah.
And so it was all my questions about, how you actually get out in the world as both as a professional artist, and I thought of it primarily at first for people who had done studying of the arts, and had got into that. But then it's morphed, like everybody who wants to be an artist, and they may be different ages, so they might be younger or they might be, in their 70s or 80s, who knows. But it's to give them a way, kind of a knowledge of the field. And
Right.
often also artists change part way.
Mhm.
Like I went from mostly being a theater artist to now I'm mostly writing. And
Yeah.
so there's, in every field, artistic field, there's different, um, I don't know if there's different rules as such, but there's definitely
Yeah.
different things you have to learn,
Right.
and there's different skills. And yeah, like between music and visual art, the amount of learning you have to do is completely different. And
Yeah.
yet there's a basic thing of being an artist.
For sure.
And I found, looking back, and this is actually what one of my editors said, is that your best advice is coaching advice, Katie, because a lot of the other stuff gets out of date, like in
Right.
terms of how to. And I've got a workbook which where I'm putting more of that stuff, although I do
Yeah.
have quite a bit in my book. But it's more the mindset that people deal with, like all the internal battles you have.
Yes.
And um and it's like, um it's there from the beginning as an artist to the end. I would think, I think, through the end, unless some miracle
Yeah.
happens, because it's actually natural to what we're doing because we're always pushing boundaries, we're always pushing our knowledge, we're always pushing our ability to express.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's always like our psychological state as a human is to want to both, I think, explore things
Yeah.
and be scared because
Right.
biologically it helps to be scared,
Yeah,
if there's
for
something
sure.
threatening.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a little bit about it, well, or a lot. And I've added two chapters, or I'm adding two chapters. One is on the impact of AI, how it can both
Right.
help and hinder, and also on Think Like an Agent, which is
Oh,
more like how we go into a project usually under some inspiration and something in our life that's generated that
mhm.
excitement. And luckily we have it and it's important to have it because otherwise we might not carry through. But at the same time, we need to know it, like art as a, like, for example, in writing, you can just journal, which is for yourself. But if you're writing a book, you're writing for an audience.
Mhm.
So there's the whole thing. Thinking like an agent is, in a sense, thinking like, who is the audience? Who's this going to go to? How's it going to land? Which audience would be most open to it? So in a sense, that's the getting out into the world. But also, as a writer and as a book coach, it's important to know almost from the beginning, it's not essential who something is designed for, especially with a book if you want it to have commercial value or, like to sell or to, be readable.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a really good point because I think that especially people starting out may not think about those things because they're so focused on the idea they have and they want to write the book and that alone is such a big undertaking that thinking about what will happen when it's done and all those other things seem like okay, I'm just going to push that to the side for now, but as you learn more and understand that there's that audience out there it just makes everything so much easier making your choices early on because you know who that ideal reader is and who you want to have read this book and I like that idea of thinking like an agent because that's ultimately if you're going to go traditionally
Mhm.
either the agent or the publisher is going to have to review that and decide whether it's for them and you kind of want to hit those marks right like it's just, and I love what you said about like writing for folks who are just getting out into the world too whether that's as a young person in a creative field or as an older person entering the creative fields like it's always a new beginning in some way and it's stepping forward there's so much I don't know, is it resistance? Like what happens to us? Because like we can be as, in our careers and our profession, maybe accountants or teachers or doctors or whatever we are, we might have so much confidence and knowledge and ability. And then when it comes to this creative stuff, we're like, is this like, can I do this? Is it is it for me? Am I able to? All the doubts creep in. What do you think about that? How do you try to address it?
Yeah, well, it's really natural. And I mean, there's two sides to it. Um, what I mean, one is I think there's there's both an idealization and a denigration of artists in this society. Either they're our biggest heroes, or and are paid extraordinary, uh, not even salaries, but extraordinary amounts of money to be in concerts or do different things, or they're considered, you're told, oh, you don't want to be an artist because you'll go broke. And that was certainly the message I got, even though I was the daughter of two artists who did pretty well. um,
Okay.
still
Interesting.
didn't encourage my artistic self at all. and or my I was surprised. I thought some of my siblings were more encouraged than me, but they all proclaimed that that didn't really happen that much. And yeah, or like I think also and this may be the case with some people who have both the privilege of growing up with artists, but also the problems that come up with it, is that it seemed like one needed to be a genius or really, really
Right.
good to do it, and that I couldn't possibly do it unless I was really good. And and so there's this idea that um yeah, you have to be really good at the start. Now, do we tell a neurosurgeon that, okay, just go out there, be inspired and
Right, right. Yeah,
do, And actually, I find it a little bit, with when we're coaching um, book clients, if they're very, very established in their field, they may think that writing a book is just a cinch
sure.
because they don't know the skills,
Right.
because it's a whole other skill set and
Yeah,
artistic skill set
yeah,
that's required. And yet, and this is also like, I think when you're an artist, you think, yeah, you have to be really good right away. You're beautiful. Your pictures have to be beautiful right away. And that is a skill set.
yeah,
That takes time and it takes patience. And you lose it if you don't use
yeah.
it to a certain extent. My mother she did really well. I mean, she got the equivalent to a PhD in arts, in England. Actually, she studied at the University of, or the School of, University of Edinburgh. I'm not sure what it was called, but anyway, in Edinburgh, and then had 6 kids and didn't do any painting for years, and then came back to it. And she struggled for quite a bit getting she still had the basic skills, but
I
she
see.
was rusty and she hadn't done it.
Yeah,
And so it's not something that just comes to you. There is work to it.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. There's an old saying, 80, is it 80 or 90% perspiration? The rest
Yes.
is inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different myths around creativity and artists, like you said, some artists, in our society, as with sports folks, and just their income is just out of this world. And then there's the starving, so-called starving artists who are, uh, that sort of myth that, oh, you'll do it for free because you want exposure. Or yeah, but it's just that idea that you know that we I like that what you said about folks having, and certainly there are sometimes people who just have these skills, and you like, where does it come from? Like a 5-year old who can play piano, and it just seems like otherworldly. That does happen, but for the majority of people, it's practice and rehearsal and having great teachers. And I mean, even the artistic masters that we all are aware of today, they had mentors who taught them and they taught the
Mhm.
next generation, right? And then there's always this continuous, like the student might bring the art form in another direction, but there was always a master ahead of them that was teaching them. So there's so many things about creativity that I think as a society we believe, and
Mhm.
aren't really true. Like I have a problem with with folks not being paid for what they do, like because
Mhm.
it requires so much work and like talent, but from having done the hours and hours and hours and hours of work and practice and learning the trade or the craft. So yeah, it's quite quite frustrating sometimes to listen to folks talk about artists. And I think, wait a minute, have you even made anything ever? Like, do you even have you even tried?
Exactly. And I mean, there is a role for artists. Like initially, I wouldn't charge for certain things just to get experience at the
Sure.
very beginning.
Yeah.
And there is a role for that. But just like in any trade or something, you
Sure.
do sometimes things, but
Yes.
there's a real limit to it. Like
Yeah.
when I first started out as a mask maker and a puppet maker,
Yeah.
or giant puppet, because I didn't make the smaller ones that much. But I did I did a number of things that were, if not free, they were pretty low paying. And
Yeah.
then after that, it was like, no, you pay me
Yes, that's
properly.
right. Yeah,
And
as you gain your
yeah.
skills and your craft improves.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And it helped me get grants later and things like
Yes,
that. There's a little bit of showing, being able to show a portfolio.
that's
So
true.
I wouldn't say to be absolutely, I mean, it's one of those things you just have to judge over
Yeah.
time, and you feel and you start feeling resentful. That's obviously the time
Right. Yes. Yeah, and
to
totally. And even as an author, there's plenty of free things I do, right? Like, yeah, and as a
oh, I
book
know.
coach, we both, do free workshops and events and signings and whatnot. So there's lots of reasons why you will do something because, it's something that you believe in or you feel passionate about. But also there's lots of things where I think, okay, if you're going to have a group of like a band come and play at a festival, those aren't musicians should be paid for that work, right? That time. You don't
Sure.
know. There's just so many situations where I think, okay, that's like just don't expect people to show up and pay their own way all the time. Like I think there's we have to value the arts the way we value like we would never ask, I don't know, I don't know. There's other professions we would ask them to come and do that thing that they're skilled at just because like because I'm going to give you a cup of coffee for it.
Well, the thing is that really I mean, as a society, we got our priorities all upside down. The
Yeah.
people who, I mean, basically, there's a huge amount of inequality, and CEOs get paid ridiculous
Yeah.
amounts, and people on the stock exchange
Yeah.
ridiculous amounts for doing nothing
Yeah.
productive. So we've got those values that are
Yeah.
not the greatest, and which we as artists kind of have to work within because we're in the society and we need
Right.
to survive. But at the same time, I've always believed in expressing differences with that. And I think, I mean, even in Europe, they value artists more. They put more into grants. They give, like I believe in theater and music, they give far more weeks that you can, like
Okay.
years even to work on a production. Whereas
Okay.
here
Yeah.
well, in Canada, often it's expected things are going to go up in about 6 weeks or maybe more for the really big productions. I'm sure
Right.
the Mervish type
Right.
productions
Right. Right.
of
Right.
the big musicals that are
Yeah.
but in terms of general theater and music, there's not that time given, and it has an impact,
Yeah.
and it has an impact on the artists themselves. And I think, well, just kind of leading in a little bit into the chapter that I'm working on, and I'm still thinking about a lot. I've written some and I've researched a lot, but basically AI is going to probably take, actually, it's going to put most people in the situation that artists have been
Mm,
in. And
mm,
that is, there's no secure jobs these days, and it's going to be more so in the next 5, 10 years. A lot of jobs, it seems like we've been fearing about the robots coming for years, but
yes.
it's, I mean, I don't know how
Guess
many years back,
what?
but it's actually looking like it's being used more and more in factories, and they're becoming more and more capable of even doing things like working in rice fields or
Wow.
farming and that. So I think, and with the rise of generative AI, there's a lot of creative. I mean, it's a risk for the creative industry. We've seen around in the film industry, and also like all these books being put out where people give a couple of prompts
Right.
and they've got a book based on
Right.
the work of many, many, many people.
Yeah.
Now, so everything is going into a situation where and also with other, let's say, other professions like lawyers and doctors, a lot of the AI can do a lot of that really
Yeah.
well, and there'll be wonderful, wonderful, there's wonderful possibilities.
Right.
And yet, I've just been finding out more about how it's not great for sustainable energy, but there may be a
Right.
way to find a way through that.
Right.
But it's happening anyway. But for artists, there will, I think, and I'm kind of getting at it in a long circular way. I think for society and for artists, we need universal basic income. And if that's the case,
Mhm.
that we do have that, then, and we do have robots or whatever AI doing a lot of the more menial thing, it actually gives the opportunity for a lot more people to do art. And
Right.
I'm not talking about the prompt art
Right.
but actually
Yes.
physically do, make paintings
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
write and all that. And
Sure.
so, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's becoming more extreme in our society.
Yeah.
I think
It's
the
such a big
children.
conversation for sure. So like my pet theory is that even though AI can do a lot of the things that we do and it's going to get better and better and better, I think human beings still have an intrinsic desire to be creative. Like it's in us and we
Wait.
need to express it, whether it's for an audience or not, or it's just for us. So I love that idea that it will allow for us to have perhaps more time, energy, or resources to be able to do those things because AI is taking over some of the things that we hate to do, like my taxes, or I don't know, something that I spend way too much time on. I think that would be an amazing, like a positive way at looking at AI. Do you have worries that um, AI will take over, say, the role of the book coach or the role of the author?
It can in many ways. Like you can use the computer to kind of coach you around a piece of writing. Just put a piece of writing in and say what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
So it's either getting some immediate feedback, but I still think the problem, I mean, the thing is there's no substitute for somebody with as a human, knows how humans experience something, and also has a depth of field, which, I mean,
Mm,
uh, or ability to kind of pick out things in a which may be a little bit more random, or it's just a different way of thinking.
yeah.
It's more holistic. Uh, um, like AI has, and it does have, I mean, you could argue it has a bit of the right brain capacity, and who knows where it's going. So let's not
Yes, yeah,
underestimate.
for sure.
But it has left brain capacity for
Mhm.
sure,
Right.
huge amounts. It can draw on all kinds of things. But in terms of right brain and
Yeah,
like more, and those are, even left and right brain is a little bit of a over categorization there.
sure.
But um, there's that kind of right brain, emotional, the ability to make metaphors that actually resonate. Like you
Right.
try and get AI making metaphors, and it's just, my God,
That's
I
not
get it, but
working.
it doesn't do it.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and the thing is that I think humans want, I mean, do we, like there's certain things we would like automation in,
Mm,
but I don't want, for example, in a restaurant, maybe they can automate some of the more boring jobs, but I want somebody serving me who's a human.
right, right.
I want a teacher, and and because you've been a teacher, I I I want to profit from some of the AI stuff, but I still want to be in groups.
Right.
Like, I still need to be in groups.
Yeah.
And I think for book coaching, like we hold people accountable. We, if we have groups, there's this whole group dynamic, which is really encouraging and keeps
Yeah.
people going. And just because a machine is encouraging you, it's just
Not the
not the same.
same.
And certainly it's, but everything will, in a sense, we don't know. And for artists, I'm kind of thinking of I mean, when you had the Industrial Revolution, you got rid of a lot of artisanal stuff as a main, like as a way to make a lot of money.
Mm, yeah,
Because clothing now is so cheap.
right.
And so, but still, for people who like to do it, and
Right.
unfortunately, I would love to be able to sew well, but I don't really like the drudgery of it.
Yeah.
So, but when they do it, there's a special feel to it. And I know a
Yeah.
woman who designs all her clothes and sews them all, and
Yeah.
she adds beauty to the world. She
Right.
also paints.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
that's in a sense, it may not, I mean, almost everything may, I mean, Elon Musk, for whatever you think about him, he says that everything's gonna be reduced to almost a value of nothing.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
there will be universal abundance.
Yeah.
Well, that's all very good, but the billionaire class has to not
Yeah.
profit from it so
Right.
much that we don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't think they should be there, but like
Sure.
we have to have a distribution of resources so we can all enjoy this abundance
Yeah. Yes.
and artistically go forward. But
Yeah.
it's fun with, I mean, I hate most of it as a visual artist. Most of the things I see, which are kind of visual art based,
Mm,
like images, they're very sweet and saccharine. And
right.
I don't, they're not art to me. They're beautiful on some levels, but they're
True.
not beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
And as an artist, right, like I hear a lot of people who aren't artists saying, "Oh, well, that's amazing," and all that.
Yeah.
And it is amazing, but it's not art and it doesn't feel like art in the same
Right.
way.
Yeah.
So, but you can actually, and it'll probably get better. I mean, it just has to be
Sure.
more imperfect to be like humans. So the more computers learn to be imperfect in their art, maybe the more their art will be interesting. But and they can be trained for that too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But what I did find is like I just experimented a little bit in this course for making images and um what I found, I did this. Okay, it's really simple, and I probably should play around a game. I had been at an aquarium and seen, it was an amazing aquarium in Veracruz, and I was looking at all the amazing fish and everything. And as an artist, I always think, it always kind of transfers in my brain a little bit to
Right.
possibilities for artwork, even if I'm not
Course.
doing a lot of visual art anymore. And so I was just thinking about, I saw these jellyfish and they just, oh, that's so amazing, all their tendrils. And I don't really want to meet one in the sea, but, but, they're gorgeous creatures.
For sure.
And so when I was doing this, learning about AI with this business coach, George Cow, who's wonderful. And um, and so I told I think I was working in, oh, what was it? Adobe Firefly.
Right.
Or I may have been working in the other one, which has gone out of my mind right now, but the other major one, but I think it was Adobe Firefly. And I was just saying, um, create some no, not hats, lamps that are like jellyfish. So it came
Yeah.
up with all these like all these
Right.
possibilities, and that's in a moment.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, create some gowns or some dresses like that. And
Right.
it came up with a whole load of ideas
Right.
there. Now, what you could do, I mean, I used to do some design and even costume design in theater, but I just never sewed it. But
Right.
so that limited my career that way,
Right.
obviously. But I thought as a costume designer, you could try out you could just play with ideas, and
Mhm.
then you can come to the physical. And then
Right.
as you're playing with the physical, you'll introduce other things that are
Yeah.
different. So it's
Yeah.
just part of the creative
Right.
process.
Yeah.
And and then I said, I swear I wasn't on magic mushrooms, but I said when I was doing this, but I told them to, can you please create houses that look like mushrooms? So it designed these
Yeah.
houses. Now, of course, probably those houses, if I got AI to design it with my knowledge, would be like the stairs would be in the completely wrong place and
Right, right,
whatever.
right.
But I mean, you need some training
Yeah.
or AI may become sophisticated enough that we can train it to do some really interesting
Yeah.
things. So we can really personalize our space and
Yeah.
make it more creative. We could with, I mean, okay, like we could, and our architects can, um, probably with 3D printers and different materials, which hopefully are sustainable, we could create materials that could be more flowing
Right.
and work, and also that would be more sustainable. So we do have in our hands something that is inherently we can play with and
Mhm.
everybody can play with. But
Right.
there are a lot of things that are have to be also regulated. I mean, regulated. Most often regulations are but we need a discussion with society and we need democratic control over these things.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
not just to be developed for the millionaires or the
Right.
billionaires.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how enthusiastic you are about AI and its possibilities as a creative person because you take the idea of how you might use AI to get bring your ideas to life, and then you
Mhm.
bring it another step and you bring it another step, and I think that's the mind of the artist. Like AI is only going to go the next step if you tell it to. It's the artist in you
Exactly.
that's saying, okay, and now this and now that and the next thing. So like as part of the creative process, it makes complete sense that we're just using it as another tool. I think like that's a really hopeful, uplifting use of AI, the way you describe it, compared to some things that I read or listen to about AI and creativity and writing. And I think, wah, wah, like it just fills me with dread. But this makes me kind of excited that we can, as artists, go, okay, this is a way to push our creative ideas forward and see all the possibilities and then make decisions. And one of the things I thought was so interesting about book coaching, and you're talking about um, that human interaction that you really uh, we need. And so,
Mhm.
yes, we can have a computer help us, AI can help us with, I don't know, some of the fundamentals and some of the planning and all of that. But at the end of the day, like if we think of creative people as just having a need to do this and a desire and a passion to do this, and I do think we will continue to pursue these kinds of things regardless of if somebody can, like if the AI can do it faster or better. I think we just have a need, and we have a need for human interaction too. Like there's just no replacement for that. So, that's my hope for book coaching and for writers is that that connection, that understanding, that being able to have those deep conversations and addressing the kinds of fears like we talked about at the beginning. People want to be creative, but maybe fear getting started and trying something new and putting themselves out there and all the
Yeah,
things that the doubts we have, right? And
exactly.
sure, the AI can say, go for it. Like it's just not the same as talking to a human being who's struggled through it. So yeah, I love how you're talking about AI because I think I mean, it's not going away, right? It's here to stay.
I mean, I mean, we can be, in a sense, Luddites and think that it will go away. It's not going to. There's too much profit in it. There's too much, I mean, they're going,
Yeah.
and so, um, I mean, actually, I mean, I'm really tech phobic in general.
You don't
So,
sound tech phobic.
no, but where it's coding and this and that,
Yes,
and all
right.
that. And so in a sense, AI, a generative AI has been a huge boon to me,
Right.
because I have a conversation with it,
Yeah.
which is much easier for me than kind of trying to figure out another language, which is, okay, the language of programmers and all that. And so I have a lot more liberty, and I think that is for um, a lot of older people who may have struggled, like I struggled with I wasn't from the generation that, I mean, email even sounds really outdated, but I was totally afraid of sending my first email, but I had to because I had a job where it was suddenly requiring me
Right.
to
Yes.
email. And I still remember the moment of terror, like of
Yeah.
touching the computer and what's going to happen? Is it going to explode or something? But yeah, and so I think actually a lot of older people are using AI, like people my age, and finding it much easier.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm actually way ahead of my son, who always laughs and mocks at me. Well,
Yeah.
he's not that bad. But you know, the
Our
younger
sons do. Yes. Yeah.
they kind of like, Mom, can't you figure that out? Or why do you keep forgetting to do that
Right.
in relation to a technical thing?
Yeah.
So it's liberating in that sense. And of course, there are huge, I'm somebody that, I mean, there's some people who are just so tech joyful about, tech joyful, that's an interesting concept, but just think that tech is the way that society's
Yeah.
problems are going to be um, solved. But that is not the case. We have seen that.
Right.
And it's merging tech with things that are very earthy and sustainable. And, like we can use tech to say, okay, how can we replace everything natural in the world? Or
Yeah.
we can use it to say, how can we use it more? How can we integrate it in new ways?
Yeah.
Um, like we can use it with in an environmental way to solve our environmental problems, but at the same time we have to recognize it's using a horrible amount of energy.
Yeah.
So, and we have limited resources. So there's well, limited resources in certain senses, but unlimited in other ways because, the sun is unlimited.
Mhm.
Well, up to a point.
Up to a point. Someday, but long.
That we don't have to worry about usually. So
Yes.
anyway, it's just yeah, so there's all these possibilities. And now to get kind of back into the regular, daily life of an
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of also in like the whole thing, are we going to be starving? Can we survive? In my book, at the time I originally wrote it, there were some really positive developments because more creativity is being needed. We're less in the machine era, and artists were being employed, and we're actually making good money
Mm.
in
Yeah.
in their fields. Now, what is happening now, we can't say for anybody what's happening, so I don't want to gloss over it.
Yeah.
But when you have a mindset which is open that you can earn and that you can then you'll see possibilities where they are. You'll pursue them.
Right.
On the same At the same time, I think a lot of us can do well with having other work, and that kind of gives a
Yeah.
nice balance.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
personally, I didn't want to, like, I was in theater for about 20 years, and I did mask making and puppetry and shows and all that, and I loved it, and I still love it. But I don't want to be doing it all the
Right.
time. I kind
Right.
of need balance, and the balance, of other work
Yeah.
also sometimes gives us time for things to kind of not hibernate, but just sort of go underneath.
Right.
And
Let it sort
like
of
sometimes we
germinate.
can, yeah, germinate and incubate or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just, it gives, sometimes if we're just there trying to produce, it doesn't happen.
Right.
That being said, we do need practice. We do need, if you want to get creative stuff done, you need to have time that you devote to it.
For
But
sure.
there is, I think, like Philip Glass, who was very famous
Yeah.
composer in the US and musician, he didn't have he worked as a plumber
Okay.
even when he got famous, and he didn't stop for, I mean, eventually he did
Sure.
because he got very busy, I guess, so busy that he couldn't keep up his plumbing job. But apparently he went, and I quote this in my book, he went to, he was doing plumbing, and the person figured, knew who he was and said, "Why in the earth are you doing this?"
Yeah.
And it's because, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Well, and that's often the case with artists. Like there's either they're an artist who works full time, like I don't want to say full time because it sounds like
Yeah,
a 40-hour week, but it
right.
is just an artist, but is has a multitude of jobs, right? Like lots of different things they're working on and
Right.
different ways of earning money. Or you're a person who works in some kind of more traditional role and you're
Mhm.
doing your art as well. And that's, we see that so often. And I think a lot of times, especially with writers, the dream is to be a professional writer and a full-time writer. And I mean, it is
Mhm.
a great dream. And and if you can do it, great. But I think the vast majority of people are, like you say, trying to strike a balance between having to earn an income and a living and feeding that creative side, whatever that looks like for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting you talk about theater. My son just graduated. Well, he's just finished this week his last year of George Brown theater school.
Oh,
And
good.
I mean, I will speak a lot to the parents who are, when we go to the shows and support our kids. And so we get to know each other. And, all the parents are like, what does this look like? Because we all have had a different kind of
Mhm.
uh, career and kind of education. And so all these young people who are enthusiastically going out into the world in a field that is precarious and you're not
Mhm.
going to be working every month of every year. You're going to be,
Mhm.
here and there. So all the parents are kind of collectively going, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. So it's a risk and it's and I think you know takes some courage and takes some resilience. And I really just think about those kids, and I'm so proud of them because they have put their heart and soul into these programs and are have decided to pursue a creative fields. And no one ever knows when they leave school what the rest of their life looks like.
Yeah.
That's probably true, right? But also in this case, it's just feels a little bit like a little bit of unknown for us as parents. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. Katie worked
Well,
20 years in the theater. Okay, good.
and we don't know, and everybody, like, I think most professions, it's
Yeah,
gonna be for most professions now. I think, like, I think of this generation coming up with the speed of what's changing.
yeah,
Nobody can be assured of
it's
anything.
true.
So I think it's mostly like it's going for what you love, um, and sometimes it may be a number of years where you just devote to not having very much money
Yeah,
and getting by,
yes,
because you have to get by, you have to eat,
yes,
and you have to, unfortunately, places like Toronto, or the
amazing.
major cities are getting horrible. I mean, in
Yeah,
terms of the rents for
yeah,
everybody, or
it's true.
for, like
Yeah,
buying a place
yeah,
is like
crazy.
incredibly expensive.
Yeah,
So it's, it's, and it's kind of seeing, well, okay, is there a way, like some people are I remember there was one writer I met on a course where I was, where we were all writing, and he was a contractor so he would do contracting part of
Okay.
the year. And then also kind of when he had a moment, he would be writing and all that.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty well. I
Yeah.
mean, you were a teacher
Yeah.
also, and you were writing your novel,
Yes. Yeah.
or not your novel, your memoirs,
Yeah,
or
well, both actually, both
yeah,
creative nonfiction and also
right,
novels. So yeah, and it is possible. It is possible, and I try to tell people it's possible, but also, it's back to the old. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to?
right.
So if you're serious about writing and working in whatever traditional field you might be in, um, there's going to be things you're saying no to as well because you can, I mean, we'd
Exactly.
like to think we can do it all, but maybe not all at once.
Mhm. Exactly. And like I did I was in a secure job, in a job that I wasn't like that was a non-traditional job for women, and I had fought to get in there, and I was there for 6 years and apprenticed as a machinist and diesel
Yeah.
mechanic, and
Wow.
could have had years of security, but I
Yeah.
was bored out of my
Okay.
mind. It was a
Didn't feed your
sweaty job.
creativity.
Yeah, and I just wasn't, much as I thought women should do anything,
Yes.
it wasn't, and I do still
And you
think
did, and you
that
can. You didn't
I
want
could,
to.
but it was just like machines really didn't interest me.
Yeah, fair.
And although certain tasks were kind of fun,
Sure.
but and where was I going with that? So it's kind of, but I did, so I quit it to become an artist and blah blah blah. And I had many difficult years, and years where I did different, well, you do teaching as well, and then you learn more and you get, you do better, like we got some grants from the Ontario Arts Council to go into the schools, but it's not like a highfalutin life.
Yeah.
And at one point, after having kind of thrown all my energies into doing a play and putting it on, and we didn't get that, we got some funding, and
Right.
then it was just like we had a child. We didn't have many children, but we had a child, and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And we didn't, I just thought, um, for the moment, I'm going to put that a bit aside
Mhm.
and get more work. And
Yeah.
I started doing some art therapy, but no, I had done that a while. But I went into coaching,
Mhm.
and no, actually I was already in coaching, but I
Right.
kind of got more into it. And initially with my mindset, I didn't make that much from coaching, and I was making more in my art. So partly it's your general mindset
Yeah.
around money that makes a difference. And I've noticed like there's certain I knew one woman, she did a lot of different things, and she was a musician, she did art therapy and all that, but she always had money to pay the rent. She always survived, did well.
Mhm.
And whereas I've known others that, they kind of are helpless a bit, and they won't get other work that will
Right.
support them, and they think they're kind of entitled, I shouldn't, like that they're entitled to have a living just because they're artists.
Right.
And that, I
Right.
mean, it would be lovely,
It would be
but
lovely.
that's the case,
Yeah.
always. So
Yeah.
it's over time, you make sacrifices and certain things you do and you don't do. If I had to tell you the truth,
Yeah.
my mother always told me, and she had become a teacher for a while, and that led her to be able later to have a good pension and work in her later years
Mhm.
a lot on her painting. So she really came into her own in her late 50s and 60s and 70s. But I she always thought we should become teachers, and that was my original
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, much as I enjoyed doing teaching, like, teaching art for a little while, but I was not suited for a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
I never in my life held well, my work in the railways was the longest 6 years, and other than that, I've only worked for a year or so on projects. Even at
Right.
a place like CBC, where I was working in the archives for a while, got a job. It was just a temporary job, but I wasn't tempted to actually go. Like, I was so bored at the end of
Yes.
that. I
Yeah.
just like I like variety.
Yes. Yeah.
So I couldn't do it. So my trajectory was my way, but everybody has their own. But sometimes I think, oh, gee, it would have been so much easier to be teaching and then
Yeah.
doing it on the side there, and like,
Yeah.
but you have to go with what suits you, and everybody has their particular skill set that they can combine to make a life.
Absolutely.
And don't let anybody tell you you're not an artist because you're doing something else,
For
because
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and you have such a wealth of experiences and interesting experiences that you can draw on when you're working with clients and you're writing. Like, I think it's everything. My mother used to say, well, still says, no, nothing is ever wasted. Like, no education, whether that's schooling or workplace education, is ever wasted because you grow and learn from it and you bring it with you. And I always think that's great because, so you might have studied to do this or that and you never work in that field. You still have all of that with you, right? And I mean, all of your interesting experiences, amazing. Can you tell us before we sign off here about I know like you're an author accelerator certified book coach as am I, and we're both part of Book Coaches Canada. So we have regular meetings and you and I have worked together on some projects before. Can you tell us a little bit about the clients you serve?
Yeah, well, I served artists and change makers, and I'm most interested in books um which in some way I feel will have an impact on society. And that could be through a memoir of certain experience that you've gone through, which has been very difficult, and the lessons you've learned. Or, you could be an expert in your field and want to convey what you've learned over many years. And so that's the kind of, it's artists and change makers, creatives. Um, I get excited by, well, I can tell you the books I don't get excited about.
Okay.
I know you probably don't either. Are books that are just saying the same old thing, like especially among experts, where there's just the general ideas in the field, and there's nothing new there. I like to have things that shake things up a bit, that say, oh, things should be done differently, or show that, in a
Yeah,
mem.
right.
And yeah, I'm very interested in people who come through trauma and challenges and show the resiliency and the ability to go through that. So
Yeah.
that's definitely an interest.
Amazing. And the other thing that you have now, it just happened in, I'm going to say February, you have a writing retreat.
Oh, yes,
And
right.
and I think you're having another one next year.
Next
That's the
year, yeah,
plan.
San
Tell us
Miguel de
about that. We can
Allende.
talk about it again closer to the date, but tell us a little bit about your writing retreat because it
Well,
sounds
okay,
fabulous.
great. Yeah, well, next year we're doing it in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. This year we did it in Cuernavaca. And we're doing it just after they always have a lovely literary um, conference there, and every year. And so we're planning it just after. And I do it with actually Sam Hyatt, who's a literary agent, and he's got over 30 years experience, so he can do the whole thing of being like an agent, thinking like an agent with people and seeing how their books do. So we did this is the coming one will be our third experience, and it's just building on it. And
Yeah.
we had such fun last time. And I kind of like to like involving one's past, like I try and bring in a bit of theater and,
Love it.
fun to the whole thing. And I, in the way I do things, it's just kind of using people's brain in different ways, because sometimes that unlocks
Yeah.
your ability to, in writing, if you draw it, even if you're stick drawings or
That's
whatever,
true.
or possibly, I haven't done this yet, but you can sing your book, and
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
there? I mean, that's
That's
like a
right.
theater exercise.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not your whole book, but
Yeah. It's true. I mean, so many fun things. It's always delightful to chat with you, Katie.
oh,
You're such a delightful person and you're a wealth of creativity. And I just love, and maybe I don't know why I'm a little bit surprised. I should know this about you, but I just love your take on AI. I think
oh.
it's just hope gives me hope and gets my brain spinning about how we can use it in for good and not evil.
Oh, well, thank you. And I have so much respect and for you, and I so enjoy our interactions. And I so love what you're doing with this podcast and
Ah, thank you.
showing different people's way of writing and getting into the creative, getting into the creative mode. And just to kind of bring back everything is that there is such a variety of artists and writers, and that's what you're doing is you are showing the variety, because I think one of the biggest myths or things is you have to be like another artist, you have to
Yeah,
look like them, you have to think like them, you have to have a routine or schedule like them. That's all bullshit,
yeah,
excuse me.
totally agree.
um yeah, and so the more you learn about different artists, the more maybe you can shape your life so
Yeah,
it reflects you,
yeah.
and you've got a whole load of alternatives to kind of sort of model or bring
Yeah,
parts from.
I love that idea that you can kind of cherry pick the things that are going to work for you and leave the rest, and then you're creating this your own path because all of our creative journeys are going to be different. But we can 100% learn from each other and be inspired
Mhm.
by each other, even if it looks different for each of us. So I love that, and
Exactly.
thank you for doing this. It's really lovely to see you. Thanks, Katie.
Thank
Have a great
you.
rest of the day.
Wonderful. Great.
If you're interested in exploring your creativity in a safe and supportive environment of women writers, join us for a weekend getaway on the French River in beautiful Ontario from May 23rd to the 25th, 2025. Learn more at rekindlecreativity.com. Do you have writing goals that you want to achieve in 2025? If you need support, encouragement, accountability, and community, join the Women Writing Circle. We meet bi weekly to set writing goals and get pages done. Go to Women Writing on Substack and subscribe. Let's create a little magic this year. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing! Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.